Hey guys, today in the fourth part of my series previewing the 2020-21 NBA season, we're talking about the Charlotte Hornets. So, last season, the Hornets finished with a 23-42 record. Um, the main drop off in their record and just in the quality of the team was from losing Kemba Walker, their franchise player in the last offseason, and replacing him with Terry Rozier. But there were some positives from the season, the main one being the breakout of Devonte Graham, who in his second year averaged 18 points and 7.5 assists, and that was really huge for them because at the start of the season people were saying they'd be the worst team in the league and didn't really know where the franchise was going. But this record also landed them the third overall pick, and with that pick they selected LaMelo Ball, probably the most hyped prospect coming out of this draft. And then they also made a few important moves in the offseason. The main one being signing Gordon Hayward, probably the biggest name in free agency this year, apart from Anthony Davis, to a 4-year, $120 million deal, so $30 million a year. A lot of people see it as a massive overpay, and we'll talk about it a bit. And this got even worse because in order to have the cap room to sign Gordon Hayward, they had to waive and stretch Nicholas Batum. So they're really paying him $39 million for the first 3 years of the contract. And then for the last year, they're paying him $30 million. So even more expensive than it seems. And that was really all that happened, all the major moves that happened for them this offseason. So for a key player, I have LaMelo Ball because this year and in the future, this franchise is only going to go as far as LaMelo is going to take them. So in Australia, in the best Australian league, the NBL, last season, he averaged 17, 7, and 7 around. And we don't really know what his stats or how good he'll be in the NBA, but they could be a bit similar to that. Some of his strengths are he's a great passer, playmaker, ball handler, all of that thing, which is he's just a really really good passer, like one of the best, and that's a skill that almost you can't really teach. That feel for the game, that playmaking, and that makes him a really exciting prospect. He's also a good rebounder, so that's something that I think often goes overlooked with him. He's a good rebounder, so he can grab the board and take it up the court and get into transition quite quickly, where he can either finish at the rim or play make and find an open shooter. Some of his weaknesses are his defense and his shooting. On defense, he was one of the worst defenders in the NBL, but that's more just due to effort. So if the coaching staff can get him to try hard on defense, I think he'll be a passable defender. And in his shooting, I mean, that's his mechanics are a bit funky, but there's also his shot selection, which isn't great. He thinks he's Trae Young when maybe he should be just taking catch and shoots and wide open threes, and not chucking them up from Damian Lillard range. So a projected starting lineup. This was pretty tough. I went with LaMelo Ball at the point guard, obviously, and for shooting guard, I went with Terry Rozier over Devonte Graham. I think they'll do that to start just because of Rozier's superior defense. So maybe he can help Ball out on that end of the floor, and because maybe they want to raise his trade value if they want to move him on. There could be some teams interested in him, like the Clippers. I don't know the exact salaries for that, but they might want to move him on and they want to get his trade value up. So I think he'll start over Graham. And I also think Graham is maybe a bit more suited for a bench role. Not a great defender, but can really score the ball and play make a little bit, and that's what you want off the bench. Anyways, at small forward, their new signing, the $120 million man, Gordon Hayward. What Hayward can do, last season averaged about 17, 18 points, but this season he'll definitely average more than that, as he could be the first, second, or third option, whereas on the Celtics he was the fourth option. What I expect, I think he can average about 22 points and maybe 6 rebounds and 6 assists. Something that's really underrated about Gordon Hayward, and I actually like this signing just on the court. I think the contract is a pretty big overpay, especially given you have to stretch Batum. But on the court, I like this signing because he's a really good passer, and he's a pretty good defender, and those are two things that are really going to help out this young Charlotte team and help out LaMelo especially. So he'll be the starting small forward. At power forward, their first round pick from last year, PJ Washington, averaged about 12 and 5. He's already a pretty good shooter, but if he can become really above average and a good shooter, I think that's probably his future in the NBA. A 3-and-D guy who can do a bit of scoring inside. I think he's a really solid young player. And at the center, there's rumors that they're looking to draft a center or get one in free agency. They still just have Cody Zeller starting there, just about like a 10.7 rebound, 8 rebound type of guy. I mean, don't have much to say about Cody Zeller, but they did draft a rookie. I think it was an early second round pick, Vernon Carey Jr. So maybe he'll get a few minutes this year and he can be the center for them in the future. Off the bench, I talked about him a bit already, but Devontae Graham, just really quick, really good scorer, good playmaker. I think he could have won Most Improved Player last year. I think he's a good player. I don't know how good he's defensively, especially since he is so small. And I don't think, there's some guys who are small and really good defenders like Patrick Beverley or Fred VanVleet, but I think Devontae Graham's just small, so he could get picked on a bit defensively. And if they're playing LaMelo Ball and Devontae Graham in the backcourt together, that's pretty weak defensive backcourt, so they could get a bit exploited there, so that could be a problem. Shooting guard Malik Monk, I feel like most people have given up on Malik Monk. I think it will just be an average bench player, 10 points a game, just average backup shooting guard type of stuff, but a very good dunker. And speaking of very good dunkers, Miles Bridges, I have a bit more optimism. If his shot improves, I think he can be a good NBA player. But for right now, he's just kind of a guy who can dunk really well. Averaged about 13 and 6 last season. So if he can take another step, maybe get to 15 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, and if he improves his defense and his shooting, then he can be a really useful player. And then for the front court, that rookie Vernon Carey Jr. I don't know too much about him, but hopefully he can develop into a good center there for them, because they really don't have a good young center to but to build with for the future. Zeller isn't really on LaMelo, Washington, Graham, those guys' timeline, so we'll see about that. So this team's strengths are, I think this is a really good passing team between Ball and Graham. Rozier's an okay passer. Hayward's a really good passer. So hopefully they can get a good offensive system with a lot of ball movement and create open shots for guys like Hayward and Graham and Rozier and Washington. And if that can do that, I think they can be a pretty good offense. Though there's a lot of good offenses this year, so if I had to predict, I suspect they'd be in the 20 to 10 range. I don't know. That's not very specific, but somewhere in there. And that's really where the strength of this team stops for me. Some weaknesses. They're still a very young team, and obviously with Hayward and Ball coming in, they're going to need some time to gel. I think they will be able to, because this team sort of makes sense. But just at the start of the season, they might not have a great record for the first 20 games, and then if they're already down like that, the Eastern Conference is competitive this year, so they'd struggle to get back in the playoff race. Also, their backup front court and just their front court in general. I think Washington's a good player, but Zeller, Carey, not really too many quality NBA players in the front court, so that could be a worry for them. And also the defensive end of the ball. That's where they're really going to struggle. I'd say the only plus defender in their starting lineup is Hayward, and then Rozier's kind of average. Ball's not good. Washington and Zeller kind of average. Not too sold on them, so I think they could struggle a bit defensively. So that could be a real problem for them. Especially, I think they're going to be a good offense, but they're not going to be a great offense. So they could just get outscored in some games. And then one last concern, I said scoring in the clutch. Like, they don't really have that clutch guy who can give it to and get a bucket. Maybe Hayward will get back to that, but he is 31, so I'm not too sure about that. And maybe it will be Ball, but his three-point shooting isn't great, so that would be another worry for them. Where will they finish? So, best case scenario, I think they're getting the 8 seed, maybe the 9 seed, and a chance at the play-in game around there. That's if everything goes right. More realistically, I think they'll be 10th, 11th in the East. Just the defense, they're still a young team. They need time to mesh. And are they better than teams like the Hawks and the Wizards? I'm not too sure. So I think they'll be about 11th. Maybe they can sneak into the playoffs. Who knows? Thanks for watching, guys. Subscribe if you guys want to see the rest of my NBA previews. I'm doing one a day, maybe 2 on Sundays until the NBA season starts again on the 22nd of December. Okay, thanks, guys.